It's been a volatile 48 hours in our nation's capital. If Karl Rove was Bush's brain, strategist Steve Bannon is Trump's id. And yesterday, he was removed from the National Security Council. The so-called nuclear option was triggered in the Senate, and the Democrats' filibuster of Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch.
This is the latest escalation in the left's never-ending judicial war, the most audacious yet, and it cannot and it will not stand. There cannot be two sets of standards.
When history weighs what happened, the responsibility for changing the rules will fall on the Republicans and Leader McConnell's shoulders.
And the third fall, Republican Congressman Devin Nunes stepped aside, at least for now, from the committee he was co-chairing investigating Russia's interference in the U.S. presidential election, a move met with mixed reaction on different sides of the aisle, to say the least.
Well, Devin Nunes has earned my trust over many years for his integrity and his dedication to the critical work that the intelligence community does to keep Americans safe.
I did have plenty reason to think that he should not be in that role, both because of his role in the Trump transition and because of his erratic, bizarre behavior as chairman of the committee.
Just another day on Capitol Hill. Joining me are the Boston Globe State House Bureau Chief Frank Phillips. Hey there, Frank. And Peter Gelzinis, columnist for the Boston Herald. So the filibuster of Supreme Court nominees is no more. I know the media is like an angst and politicians, all this hand-wringing. Politico headline, RIP U.S. Senate 1789 to 2017. Why should the average person care at all about this procedural change?
Well, it's an important debate in political science, having the filibuster and the two-thirds vote. It's a sort of arcane way of looking at us. We're a federation of states. We have the minorities. We have Vermont and having two House representatives and two senators and one House representative. Does that really work? I mean, the point is our definition of who we are. Do we protect the minorities? Do we protect the smaller states from being overwhelmed by the larger? But
population? Majority rules. The end of the day, this catastrophe, this end of the Senate as we know it, whatever that means, basically means that when someone nominates a duly elected president, nominates somebody to serve on the Supreme Court, he or she needs a majority of the votes, just like the president needed to become, well, he didn't get the majority of the votes, but he won the Electoral College. Is that as big a deal as so many people, particularly in your profession, are talking about?
I mean, for me, I think it's a formal indication of just how partisan we are, you know. I mean, I see this not so much with the kind of intricacies that Frank does, but the idea that, you know, they're looking at this and they're thinking of Merrick Garland, and they're thinking we have to do this.
The filibuster.
The filibuster. We have to go this route. And I think they know it's you know, people are saying this is going to have consequences down the line, but I think they wanted to stress the point that, you know, it's a little hypocritical for McConnell to get up and talk about you know, what the Democrats are doing when he absolutely refused to even have this guy interviewed.
But the Democrats are hypocritical too, since they're the ones that lowered the threshold to a majority for non-Supreme Court judges and for cabinet appointees. Let me add a third voice into this conversation. Chuck Todd from Meet the Press is with us on the radio. His contention is the worst part of this is it means more extreme judges than we currently have. You don't have to appoint somebody who's got to appeal to a handful of people in the other party. If you're a president in one party and you have a majority in the Senate in your same party, you can, if you're a Democrat, you can appoint someone way to the left. If you're a Republican, someone far to the right. That is a legitimate fear, is it not, Frank Phillips?
It is, and it could be a real problem. I just wanted to say that, you know, when you and I were kids, Jim, you remember the Dixiecrats would filibuster civil rights bills, but they had to be there. They would put cots there,
it's a different
and eventually they would. In the mid '70s, they changed that rule and made it so much easier. Now, all they have to do is declare a filibuster, and they don't have to be there all the time and have to talk 24 hours a day.
They just have to say they're threatening the filibuster.
And they're going to do it. And that has made the filibuster all the more effective. And I think that's out of balance.
You know, one last thing here. For people to be clear at home, while it's gone for all these appoint nominees, it's still there for legislative matters like health care and tax reform. One of the reasons the Democrats are crawling around on health care is they have to get 60 votes to pass most things around the reform, repeal, whatever you want to call it. why should one think if the Republicans are willing to get rid of this on Supreme Court justices, they're not willing to get rid of it on legislation too? Just do away with it across the board.
I mean, you'd have to ask Chuck Schumer about that. I mean, they've decided that this is the way they want to go. You know, they want to take it to this level. And you're right. I mean, I think it's going to have all kinds of consequences in terms of, you know, I think it formalizes the state that we're in terms of the partisan divide.
And lack of civility, I agree. Can we talk about another fall from grace, a pretty high profile one? Steve Bannon dropped from the National Security Council. And a lot of people who were objective say, well, it's a good thing. You shouldn't have a political person deciding national security issues. To some, he's the Darth Vader of this administration. People can't stand Trump. To some, he's this radical populist who embodies the essence of who Donald Trump is. What's the impact, potentially, of this key advisor who clearly has an ideological agenda, even if the president doesn't? What's the impact of Bannon's at least temporary fall?
I think maybe the adults have taken over in the White House, and I think that's important. Bannon is way out there, and he should never been on the Security Council. He has no experience in foreign policy or national security or intelligence gathering. So it was outrageous that he was there. The fact that he's off it is obviously a sign, and all the reports coming out of the White House is that there is some falling out there, that he was bushwhacked by others around Trump. And that the adults are winning the contest.
But when he says the adults are winning, some people say General McMaster, who replaced General Flynn, who's in a lot of trouble, obviously, well, maybe in a lot of trouble now, he won the day, which I think for America is a good thing. You mentioned adults in the room. A lot of reports are saying the adults, who are barely adults, who won the day were Jared Kushner, essentially the de facto Secretary of State, and his wife, Ivanka Trump. Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing for America?
Well, first of all, I'm not too sure how far Bannon fell. I mean, I still think, he may not be.
New York Times says he threatened to quit because of that.
Well,
that's
he did,
pretty
and they talked him
fall.
back. But I still think, whatever ideas, and I don't think he has any ideas of his own, but whatever ideas Trump seems to espouse comes from this guy. And you're right. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of backstabbing and all kinds of knives in the water when it comes to the Kushners and some other people in that circle. But I still think that he's the guy that is going to tell Trump, he's going to give Trump the sort of general parameters of some idea, some direction that he should go.
And you think he still does it even if he's fallen on one level?
I do. Until he's out completely.
What's that?
The jarring thing is we have Jared Kushner going to Iraq as a representative and taking on that role as foreign policy.
Yeah, but all he's got beyond that is the Middle East and China and all these. And
but he looks so like
the American economy.
Where is Tillerson?
Did you read the story in the Washington Post? He takes a private elevator up to his office, locks the door, and reads books all day long.
Let me tell you what I learned.
This is Secretary of State.
I learned from somebody very close to John Kerry that Kerry reached out to Tillerson before he came in and said, look, we'll sit down and do this, a 5-minute conversation. Tillerson never called him back. They were all prepared to lay out everything to him.
Well, can we end here? Former head of the EPA, Gina McCarthy, here the other night, reached out to her successor, Scott Pruitt, no call back. Former head of Customs and Enforcement was here last night, reached out to his successor, no call back.
Trying to up me?
Exactly, and I did. Frank Phillips.
Are you surprised?
Peter Gelzin, it's good to see you as well. Gentlemen, thanks so much.